you.
Right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We are just going to give it another minute or two to see if we have others who want to join in for this presentation. So we ask you just kind of sit tight, refill your water bottle if you need to, get a cup of tea if you're like me, feeling this wind coming.
Rachel, I'm glad you're here again. And Mara and Bree and Sarah, it's so nice to see you all. And if there's anyone I don't know, I can't wait to get to know you today. Oh, Rachel has a friend today.
You want to say hi, Ollie?
Hi.
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 Yeah, we might have some people bopping around in the back today.
I need to do something. Okay.
I love getting the energy. Sarah, you look very warm. I love your hat.
What are the earrings, Sarah? Do you have any in today?
I'm wearing Star Wars earrings because I'm wearing a Star Wars shirt.
Yes.
All about the earrings.
I am going to apologize ahead of time, y'all, because I am using a tablet to present because I forgot my charging cord for my laptop today of all days. So if I have like pauses where I'm like, oh, it's because I'm figuring out how to share my screen.
Right, and with that, since we are just a minute after 1, I'll just remind everyone who's already here to please keep yourselves muted unless we're at a question point. Please use the chat for questions. I'll be monitoring that and can pause Kylie at an appropriate time, or we'll save those until the end. If you are in a place where you want to have your camera off and sit back and listen, that is perfectly fine, and we welcome you to do that. We also love seeing faces, so if you'd like to keep your video on, that's perfectly acceptable as well. But Kylie, I will go ahead and turn it over to you, and I'll manage the waiting room, and we'll get the glitches of screen sharing out of the way.
Thank you, Michelle. I appreciate it. Well, like I said, it's so good to see everyone. Let's go ahead and see if I can share this content. Screen recording. Well, as I am figuring this adorable mess out, I just want to introduce myself to anyone who doesn't know me yet. My name is Kylie Jones-Greenwood, and I am super excited to be here today to spend a little time with you. Andrea is chuckling at me because of my screen sharing faces. We've shared this before. And I just want to let you know I am the Community and Outreach Programs Coordinator for Tracy Aviary. And I am just so excited to be here. UC is like my people. I just finished a presentation for another set of folks at a different conference that I'd never been to before. And now this is like, oh, I'm back with my security blanket here. It's so nice. So even if I can't get this going, we're going to jump in anyway. And this is what being an educator is all about. You just go with whatever flow you have. So we'll just be talking with one another. So this is nice because if you put yourself in gallery view, you'll be able to see everyone else who is on the call and is choosing to share their video. that will be very nice because I'd like to talk together today as part of my program. And we are here to talk about queering environmental education. And we will definitely talk about what that means and why it matters and how to do it. So I am just going to get my sweet little slides up on my phone instead and have my notes in front of me. So if you want to go into the chat and write your name and the pronouns that you use, and maybe say what your favorite bird is. I always love asking what people's favorite bird is. I use, oh my gosh, you knocked it out of the park for me, Anne. Oh, thank you for being a friend. Queering environmental education, what it is, how to do it, and why it matters. Still, please pop into the chat. Let us know all of these fun things about you. Thank you, Mara. Great blue herons are amazing. Wendy likes crows. Bree likes sandhill cranes. Rachel loves puffins. So fun to see all of this information. Thanks, Dave. Ravens. Michelle, I thought you were going to say hornbills, but you put turkey vultures. What do you know? Ruddy ducks. Yes, three-toed woodpeckers. Oh, this is making my day. I will have you advance to the next slide, Anne, if you please. And this is my favorite Bitmoji of myself. Just to introduce myself a little bit more. I have been the Community and Outreach Programs Coordinator at Tracy Aviary for a few years now. I use they, them pronouns. And my favorite bird is a tie between the American avocet and the Laysan albatross. I find them both very exceptional for different reasons, most to do with their beak. I am very excited to get going. Finally, after our trials and tribulations, we can go to the next slide, and we're just gonna start the day with a land acknowledgement and just honor the people who have come before us here. So I've adapted this from the U of U's Indigenous Land Acknowledgement, just put kind of an EE spin on it. So go ahead and take a deep breath and let's acknowledge the first people on this land. Utah has always been a gathering place for Indigenous peoples, and today we acknowledge that this land is the traditional and ancestral homelands of the Shoshone, Paiute, Goshute, and Ute tribes, and is a crossroad for Indigenous peoples. We recognize and celebrate the enduring sense of place and deep relationship between many Indigenous peoples and their traditional homelands. We're grateful for the territory upon which we gather virtually today, and we give respect to Utah's Indigenous peoples, the original stewards of the land. Today, approximately 60,000 American Indian and Alaskan Native peoples live in Utah, and we hope to join with our partners in deepening our relationships with all Indigenous people of Utah and through the work of environmental education. So I am very excited to be here with you, and all of you across the state virtually. And you can raise your hands with the little icons or just with your actual hands. Ever been to Tracy Aviary before? Yes, some of us have. I'm scrolling through all your videos if you are on or not. Yes, I love Tracy Aviary. It has been a dream. Oh, Wendy, you're in Colorado. I'm so glad you're here with us. Well, if you're ever in Salt Lake City, in the middle of the city in Liberty Park, we have Tracy Aviary, and it is a zoo that is all about birds. We have 420 birds in residence at the aviary right now, and it's just been a dream to learn more about them and help folks from the community to connect with them and with nature. And the best thing that's happened in the last couple of years is we have extended our reach from Liberty Park and Tracy Aviary to include a second campus right on the Jordan River at 3300 South. And it is the Jordan River Nature Center, where I join you from today. And the Jordan River Nature Center has been really unique and given us a lot more opportunities to tune into what the community wants, not just what we think the community wants. And so that has really kind of been one spark on my journey to thinking about queering environmental education, not just for the aviary, but in my personal practice as well. So on the next slide, we will jump into some definitions that will help us to figure out what queering means for all of us in our contexts. So these are not exhaustive. These are just my best understanding of these right now that will be useful for our time together. But if you have things you'd like to add to these definitions, drop that in the chat so that everyone can see, because these are very big topics, and we want to have as holistic a view as possible. So first of all, when we're thinking about queering any field, we need to first consider systems of power and the privileges that are a part of those systems. So power is the ability to act or produce an effect. And it is deeply intertwined with privilege, which is an advantage gained by birth, social position, effort, or concession. So a big trope, for example, is the Karen, right? And Karens are big personalities, normally white women from a higher class place in their community. They have privilege that then they wield as power to get what they want. And that's kind of like the meme example, but anyone in your community who has a privilege has power to either keep with themselves or to give away to other people. And when you're giving power away, if you're doing it right, you are an ally. And so allyship is siding with or supporting someone that identifies in a group that's different from your own. A great example of that that's very personal to me is lots of you met me when I did not use they, them pronouns and I wasn't out as gender queer yet. And you are an ally by learning to use this new system of pronouns with me and to use them with the people that we know in our lives that intertwine. And so many people on this call have been an ally for me, and I thank you for it. And so that allyship, that giving of power and honoring people is kind of what queering is. Queering is a type of allyship that seeks to redistribute power within a system and centering that practice on LGBTQIA+ folks. And it is along the same idea as what decolonization is for people of color. That's what queering is for queer folks. So these definitions are going to kind of help our conversation today. And if you ever need to see them again during our conversation, and we'll be able to come back to this slide for us. But if we go to the next slide, I have a couple of questions that I want to talk about. And in an ideal world where my laptop was functioning, we would have had menti.com polls to make word clouds together. But I want to just invite you to think about this question and then unmute yourselves and answer out loud, just being careful of time, or putting your answer in the chat. What sort of person might feel most welcome at an EE program in your context? And I want you to think about something that you're already doing at your space. And I want you to consider maybe just one particular program and really think, like, what attributes does that person have that would be most welcome? I think I heard someone unmute. Does anyone want to speak out on this?
Sure, I'll start. Hi,
Great.
this is Shauna. Let me start my video here. Hi.
Hi, Shauna.
Hi, thank you so much for hosting this. I'm a educator at Tuacahn School for the Arts.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was thinking about that question, I have to kind of think about, gardeners' intelligences, right? For myself, I think sometimes students who might be most attracted to taking environmental education class is someone who has that naturalistic intelligence a little bit higher, perhaps, than others. And I guess that's all I was going to say in response to that.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Shauna. I also saw a few things in the chat. Neek said maybe a white, straight, cis person. Mara said someone who's already comfortable in the outdoors. Rachel said someone that is in elementary school or has an interest in native wildlife. Andrea said those with outdoor gear. These are great answers to this question. Did anyone else want to unmute and speak for a few seconds? I want to make sure everyone has a chance. Okay, thank you so much, everyone. So we are now going to consider my next question, which is why? Why would that sort of person feel most welcome at an EE program in your context? And I noticed that Lulu added their voice to the chat. Someone who speaks English, Andrea said. Lulu said those with an interest in the outdoors and attends school. Bree said someone who lives in the community or is visiting from out of town. And so now in the chat or unmuting yourself, why would that sort of person be the most welcome at your programs?
I'll talk to two of these privileges. For the Great Salt Lake Shorelands Preserve with the Nature Conservancy, it does take transportation to get out there. It's somewhat remote. It's not right outside houses unless you live in that neighborhood. And all of our programs, except for one, are in English. And so, so that's a major hurdle to those who either speak English as a second language or don't speak English at all. And I'll let others speak on some of the other barriers.
Thank you, Andrea. Those are big ones for lots of our programs, lots of our contexts. In the chat, Anne said they see their traits reflected in our staff. You kind of gravitate towards the kind of folks that are like you, and that's a great point.
I think, hi, this is Shauna. I was thinking about a comment one of my Hispanic students said, Sophia. We had an extraordinary opportunity to do a fish release with Mel Benyon on the Virgin River, endangered.
Great.
I've been working with Mel. Wow, I've been working with Mel for about 6 years, taking groups of students out, small groups of students. And Sophia, we were turning it into an art event. And I said, oh, you can take your parents down here now and your family and show them this site that you did this amazing, endangered species fish release. And she goes, oh, my family won't come. And so I think sometimes it starts, oh, my family wouldn't do that. My family doesn't go in the outdoors. So getting to the Virgin Gorge is a pretty accessible for anybody that lives in Washington County. I mean, you do have to do some hiking, but I also was thinking like, well, how do you create a greater dialogue? Again, like somebody was saying before, like I haven't seen any signs other than Zion's that has bilingual sign.
Right. Yeah. So we have accessibility not just with physical things like hiking up there, but also language accessibility.
Right. Like, language accessibility to make them feel like, oh, this is something I'd be interested in doing. Interested in taking my family to. Thank you. That's all for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Shauna. Let's see, in our chat, we also heard from Michelle that they've experienced something like it before. And Bree said most of our programs are word of mouth within the community who tend to be middle, upper classers. And that is absolutely right for Park City, but also here in Salt Lake. So what I hope that we see from these questions is that there's intersectionality of all of these powers and privileges. And we see that many people are like the doorway into our programs is wide open for them. And for other people, we have a little tunnel that they have to crawl through to make it into our programs. And so I know that in 50 minutes, we can't consider and solve all of these different power dynamics. But if we can zoom in one at a time on these, queering being our zoom in moment here, and maybe language accessibility at another spot, then soon we'll be able to be friendly and welcoming and neighborly to everyone, not just folks that are like the people that are welcome at our EE programs now. So, Anne, if you can go to my next slide, we're going to talk about some ways that we can do this. So sometimes without meaning to, our programs cater to the status quo. And I want us to think together now about how we can disrupt and dismantle the current power structure and welcome and honor queer folks in our communities. And as a sidebar, I spell folks F-O-L-X because it is a thing in the queer community that helps us to kind of code into our writing that we welcome and honor the queer community, and that includes trans folks and people of color and all of those different aspects. So you're going to see that, and Canva and everything else puts a little red line under it, but it is correct. So I have put together some ideas. They're not an exhaustive list, but some things that maybe we can do in our programs. Some you might already be doing, but others that may spark new inspiration for how to make your personal practice and the things you do at your institution a little more welcoming and inclusive. So, Anne, we can go to the next slide. The first thing I want to talk about is avoiding assumptive language. Language is the principal way that we communicate with each other at our programs, and it's very easy to assume that someone fits into the status quo power structure. And so I want to talk a little bit about how we can work against that. And so the first thing I have on this slide is recognize and affirm diverse family dynamics. We all remember in elementary school where you make your Mother's Day card, you make your Father's Day card. Hey, are your parents here to pick you up? The family looks different than that, and it's a beautiful thing. So if we recognize and honor diverse family dynamics, that's one way that we can help queer folks with families to feel like they have a spot with us. The second thing I have on the slide is use non-gendered words to describe groups of people. I'm not from the South, but I say y'all all the time, and I use folks and peeps and words like that. I'm trying to train myself out of saying, hey, you guys, but that's like years of embedded behavior. So it's going to be hard, but that's another way, instead of saying, hey, boys and girls, and leaving someone like me out, just not even having that as a thing in their mind that they have to worry about. Third, what I have here is be considerate of the terms you use when expressing negative emotions. And what I mean by this is when we say, like, that's this thing that happened, oh, that's so gay. Or when we say, oh, this crazy thing happened. These are just like ways that we continue to embed, even without meaning to, the idea that those are negative things in our communities. And it might not be a thing that's in your language. It might be in the language of someone who is in your immediate surroundings. And it's a really great way to be an upstander and ask someone not to say things like that. Fourth here, I have find alternatives or eliminate references to a person's sexuality or gender. I don't know about you, but I have that friend that's always like, hey, this is Rachel, she's a lesbian. Or I have this friend, Kylie, they're not a girl. Just introduce me, just introduce us, right? And we don't have to have that as like the talking point of who we are. It also helps if you're in a program and you want people in groups, maybe not saying boys over here, girls over here, because you're going to have someone who doesn't want to be in either of those groups. So there are lots of ways that that kind of creeps in when we don't mean to, and we can find other aspects of who a person is to introduce them with or to sort them with. And finally, I have offer your pronouns upon meeting someone. This is scary for me as a genderqueer person to be the one that starts with this. To always be the one that says, my name is Kylie and I use they, them pronouns. What pronoun should I use for you? That puts me in a vulnerable spot in our power structure because I am essentially outing myself to new people. And so if people who are cisgendered start using their pronouns to introduce themselves to, it eliminates the power of that moment. It normalizes this for all of us and creates more safe spaces for trans or gender creative folks to be in our programs. I want to stop there and see if anyone has questions or needs something reworded about avoiding assumptive language. Feel free to unmute yourself. I love what we have in the chat too. Make sure you're checking that chat.
So I have a question, just if you know of any kind of resources that kind of list any of these. So you gave great examples here, but you know, a more exhaustive list of these type of terms.
Yeah, so if you go to the Utah Pride Center website, they have resources on all of this type of stuff and more. All the different pronouns you might hear people use, words that you can use that are non-gendered to describe groups of people. I would highly recommend that you all spend some time poking around the Utah Pride Center site. Thank you, Maura. Shauna calls her students Padawans. I like that. So just to make sure I still have time to go through everything, let's go to the next slide and talk about my other ideas. My next thing sounds simple, but is kind of hard to do. Make new friends. Make an effort to get to know nonprofits and community organizers in the queer community, but don't ask them to be your educators. I took a plunge into this earlier this year. We at the Tracy Aviary in the Ed department had been talking about doing some programs that are just dedicated for the LGBTQIA plus community. And so I shot an email off to a person named Nick who works in programming at the Pride Center and said, hey, I have ideas. What do you think? And made a new friend. Like, Nick is the best and can attest. They're just amazing. And you just have to like have that moment of bravery to reach out. And sometimes that's hard because you think you're going to mess up or like say a faux pas or something like that. But remember, like, people are people and we all want to make new connections. My asterisk here, don't ask them to be your educators, I think is maybe the most important part of this, because when I, for example, tell someone that I'm genderqueer and then they are like, okay, you are now the expert in all gender things, that makes me feel very awkward because I'm only an expert in my experience and the things that I control in my realm. And if you want someone to educate you, pay them for it. buy a book, attend a webinar. Like, there are ways to get information and not put your friends on the spot. On my next slide, we're going to talk more about the programs that I mentioned. Give the people what they want. Folks want dedicated programming based on their ideas and their input. And you know what? Y'all would probably say the same thing about every program that we make. Like, we do what the kids are excited about in student-led learning. And we have our family nature groups that follow the ideas that families are interested in. It's the same for every group of people. But it's very important for the queer community. And a little bit about that is that the queer community is often told what to do. We're told who we can marry and what pronouns we can use. Andrea, thanks for coming. You'll be able to access the recording. It was lovely to have you. But a lot of our lives are legislated, or if we come out and be our true selves, we are slapped back by people who are not accepting. And so to have a dedicated program that you know is going to be a safe space is really, really valuable. So these are 3 things that we have done at the Aviary, centered at the Nature Center, that were in partnership with the Pride Center. So the first thing we did was start Let's Go Birding Together. And if you're a fan of the Audubon Society, you might have seen articles about this throughout the last couple of years. An Audubon Society group in New York started doing Let's Go Birding Together programs a couple of years ago. And essentially it was just, hey, queer folks and allies, even if you have no bird watching experience at all, let's just go on a walk with binoculars and learn from each other. And it was first and foremost a community building thing, and then second, it was a nature lover thing. And so it was really just like beautiful, and it took off across the whole country. And so we were really excited to get them started here in Utah. And so we have had several Let's Go Birding Together experiences along the Jordan River Trail, some of them open to the public, and others specifically for the support groups that the Utah Pride Center's mental health section puts on, for women or trans and non-binary people, et cetera, because they've been meeting online and like talking their hearts out to each other and not seen each other in person since February. And so this has been really popular because it's an easy way to socially distance right now in the pandemic. We have all of the things they would need. So we have freshly sanitized bird ID guides and binoculars, and we know our way around the trail. And Anne and I have just had the best time just getting to know people and also seeing chickadees. So that spurred us on, like, what else can we do together? We were really excited. The Pride Center was really excited. So we did 2 other things before the weather got too cold. In the center of the screen, you'll see the Trash Picker Social. And we invited people to clean up the Jordan River Trail and feel more connected with this urban environment that we have. And so this picture is one of our friends that we met that day, Neil, and he was just a trash picker extraordinaire. We, again, just had all of the supplies we would want people to use and had them sign up. And so they went and picked trash up along the river and then had lemonade and cookies on our porch. And just last weekend, we did Paddle with Pride. This was an even bigger experience for us because we brought in another partner. Anyone who's ever worked with the Jordan River Commission knows that Amy Horman is the best. And so she brought her canoes, and we signed folks up with their quarantine bubble or their household all shared one canoe. So we were still socially distanced and responsible. And she took them out on the river and they paddled around for a little while. And then Anne and I prepared many, many hot drinks for them to enjoy afterwards. And so our big thing is that every person who we had on these programs said, I want to get to know new people, and I want to have a safe spot to do that, and I want to be outside. And so all 3 of these programs are examples of ways to accomplish all 3 of those things. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. I have, and let's go back to the other one, because there was going to be another mentee thing in here, but it's not here, and that's fine. I want to pause here for a second for questions or comments or ideas that you might have for your programs so far.
Hi, I had an idea. This is Shauna.
Yes.
Thank you so much that you've shared thus far.
Yeah.
We just had at our school a presentation by a new support group for the Pride community that is called Encircle.
Yes.
Encircle. They just made a presentation at our school, and the first thing I thought of was some type of partnership with that group.
Yeah, absolutely. Encircle is amazing, and a really cool thing about them is that they're in communities all over the state. So we have one here in downtown Salt Lake, another in Provo. Like, they're just all over, and they do beautiful work. Thanks for bringing them up.
A beautiful place in downtown St. George.
Fantastic.
Yeah, like we haven't don't have the water like water adventures so much, except on some reservoirs, but there's a nice trail systems. It'd be nice to see some type of partnerships happening.
Fantastic. Did anyone else have comments they wanted to speak about?
Kylie, I have a question.
Yeah, that's Sarah, right? Do I
yeah.
recognize your voice? Great.
Yes. So my question is, especially in advertising these programs,
yes,
did you make sure that you specifically brought up the fact that these were encouraged to, for the LGBTQ plus community to attend, or was that something you didn't do? I guess I'm asking this question because our nature center, Daniel, who you might remember, tried to put on one of these things, and our nature center felt like we shouldn't bring it up to the community that that's what it was for.
Oh.
And we did, and so we still called it Let's Go Birdie Together, but nobody, unless you knew that that's what that stood for, knew that that was a safe place for people to attend. And so I'm just kind of curious, do you put that in your advertising? And if you do, how can you encourage your nature center to be a little more open to do that?
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. That's such a great question. So we were the most explicit we could possibly be with this. We had our logo and the Pride Center's logo on it, first of all. And then we had 4 LGBTQIA plus folks, FOLX, and allies on all of our things. And any design work I did was just like as queer as I could make it, quite frankly. And so that really sent the message that we were putting ourselves out there. No matter what anyone else in the community thought, this was going to be a safe place. And we are making that stand. And we are so lucky at the Aviary that that's just kind of how we operate. So I didn't even have to have that conversation and understand how that could be really hard for some other places. But if you don't say it, you are asking people to stay in the closet. And what I would say, Sarah, is that sometimes I have to pass and not be my authentic self. And if you have a program and you say, we need this to pass as heteronormative, there may be other work that needs to be done at your center before something like this could happen. And so I don't have a great answer for the latter part of your question, but I do send all of my support, and I'm happy to provide what we did and why it worked so well. so that you have that kind of anecdotal evidence to present to your center. Does that help at all?
Yeah, definitely. It's helpful to know how you guys have done this and approached it in the future, so that if that's something that, anyway, if I need to approach people at my nature center, that I can say, hey, this has worked. They did it this way. It was successful.
Yeah, and I guarantee, yes.
Oh, go ahead, Kylie. Sorry. I was also going to say, I think what helps with this, I mean, like Kylie said, this was not really something that was like up for debate. It was like, we're doing it. And the reason we could was because as an organization, in our strategic plan and our priorities, one of the three is being a great community partner. And so when we look at doing programming like this, it's like, we are being a great community partner. We are partnering with the Pride Center. We are serving a need in our community. And so it really helped having that document that if anything was questioned, it's like, no, we're fulfilling this need that our mission, our vision, our strategic plan and priorities align with. And that really helped having that foundation at the organization level. So I'd also like look to that language and see if you can make an argument based on what is in there, because that's what you're putting out to the community that you're supposed to be doing as a nonprofit. So if there's language in there that you can say like, no, this is why we need to be doing it or why we should be wording it this way, I would use those resources that already exist.
Thank you so much, Michelle. This is why it's great to have people at all levels of your organization involved, because you have all these different experiences and where your mind goes. And you were going to say something too.
Yeah, I was just going to add that I know that sometimes the pushback is like, well, then not everybody feels welcome at that program. And even though it includes and allies, but I think you can still make the case like, well, we have programs that are specifically for families and we have programs that are specifically for kids. Like, why can't we have a program that's specific for this community? So making it like framing it in that framework, I think helps a little bit.
You took the words out of my mouth. That was going to be the next thing I was going to say. Thank you so much for the wisdom of the room coming together.
Thank you. It was all really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you for stepping up with that question, Sarah. It's really important. And that is a great example of how we need to change and dismantle the power structure as it is. And really, like, if we do have things for kids and that's a group we want to cater to, why not consider other groups that we want to cater to? Did anyone else have questions or comments they wanted to speak out before I move on a little bit? Neek put some cool stuff in the chat. They are down in Kanab and they're hoping to put together a queer ecology program this year focused on a theme of resilience. And that speaks to the depths of me, Neek. I'm so excited to hear how that goes. So the other thing that I think that Sarah's question highlighted is that this is not like a thing that you can change everything in your organization to queer your practice immediately. You have to have conversations with all the other people that you work with, and everyone's situation will be different. So I put together on the next slide just 3 really easy things that you can do this week to get yourself started in queering your personal practice and sharing with other folks at your work. So first of all, you can audit your language. This has helped me a lot, making mental notes of the words I use when I address groups or talk to strangers versus talking to my family and friends or about concepts as a whole. This is a great way to consider if you gender something or someone and why you do that. For example, if I'm talking about animals, I most always call them a him. I don't know why. It's because I live in a patriarchy, I guess, but like maybe I should change that and consider that more. And if I'm talking to a stranger versus a family member, like, do my biases come out in different ways? Or if I'm talking about, Amanda says, except cats. Cats are all she's. That can be true. So just making these little notes and considering how you can change that to be a little more inclusive is an easy thing that you can do for your personal practice. Second, and this is something that you can invite folks at your place of business to do as well, read or watch a different perspective, enjoying an article or a book or a YouTube video or a film made by folks who aren't exactly like you. And I want to stress, made by and about those people, because I can talk about someone who's different from me, but I won't know their experience in the really intimate way that they can tell me about it. And this could be a way to start changing the conversation or the sentiments that you have at work if you invite other coworkers to do this with you. And then finally, committing to change. Just making one or two small but meaningful goals about how to enhance your personal practice and working on them at work or working on them as homework in other places and other clubs you're a part of. And then that can grow and change your constellation of behaviors so that it's embedded in all of the things you do. Does anyone else want to speak up with other things that they might do to start off their queering of their practice? We have a couple of minutes left, so I'd like to give people air to talk if they want to.
I think you brought up a good point, Kylie, about doing this at work, but I think too, just like talking to others, right? Like realizing it for yourself and like having that self-reflection, but also feeling comfortable in correcting other people or giving them alternatives. You know, like what you said is fine, but I'd suggest speaking like this. And that's something like my husband and I have a lot of those kinds of conversations with this, with race and everything, right? Is like being very aware and sharing with others. So I think that helps solidify your practice, but also spreads that message.
I love that, Michelle. Thank you so much. Bree asked in the chat, do you have any videos or films you recommend? And the two things that pop to my mind aren't, so the first one, so if anyone has not seen the movie Moonlight, I highly recommend. It is about a queer Black man, and it goes through his whole life growing up and the intersection of all of those powers that held him back or made him feel like he wasn't who he should be, and his journey towards being his authentic self. And I can think of some others and send out a list with the resources, with the recording of this. That's a great question. And Lulu has this great list, y'all, that is an alternative word list that they go over every month and with Bike Utah to help our language become more inclusive. And maybe that is a resource that they can share at some point, maybe on one of the conference Padlets. So, and we can go to my last slide. And I just want to say thank you to everyone for being open and having this conversation with me. 50 minutes is not a long time, especially when I had to waste some time at the beginning figuring stuff out. But I feel like we were productive. I feel like we were starting to get to the core of what queering our practice can look like. And it was very special for me to be able to share my experience as a queer person with all of you and to have that met with open arms. And that's what I love about our EE community here. And we can continue to work together to make this an even more inclusive family of educators and start changing things in our state, all of our states. We have people from Idaho and Colorado on the call too. So, man, I have one more minute. Write down my email address and get a hold of me if you want to talk more about this. And go ahead and unmute yourself and say bye as you get off the call, because it was so nice to see you all.
I had one question.
Yes, is that Libby?
Yeah, that's me.
Perfect. Hi.
Hi. So I work for a local environmental nonprofit in Salt Lake, and I've tried to plan events with certain communities, and I've gotten some like backlash saying that it's too political and like we can't do that. And I was just wondering how to like cross that barrier.
That one's really tricky because I don't feel that like I am a political person because I'm queer, but sometimes people tend to politicize that part of me. And so I wonder if we as a group can keep considering that question and put some resources we might know about in the Padlet for the conference to help Libby out. Does that sound like something we can all maybe consider for the rest of today? Thank you so much. And Libby, I will think about it and get back to you as well.
Awesome, thanks.
Absolutely. Thank you for the question. It's really, really important. And if we had more time, man, what else could we talk about? But
Kylie, I just wanted to say that I got my very own rescue dog, and I knew you would be so excited.
Oh my gosh, I'm trying to find you so that I can see. Oh, Bree, come on.
Isn't she so cute?
She's the best. We should have doggy time socially distanced.
Yes, let's do it. Just thought I should show her while I could.
I love it. Thank you.
Thank you for the great talk.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, everyone. Hope we all hear from you soon.
Kylie.
Thanks, Rachel. See ya.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.